Hey there, membershipper. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of the Membership Geeks podcast. You are listening to the #1 show for membership site owners with tips, tactics, insights, and ideas to help your membership thrive. I'm your host, Mike Morrison. I'm the founder of Membership Geeks and Membership Academy. And this month, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Membership Academy, and indeed of everything that we do here at Membership Geeks. You know, we launched Membership Academy just a few months after we launched the podcast and the blog for Membership Geeks. Or, as the old school long-term listeners will know, back in the day it was called Membership Guys, and the Academy was called Member Site Academy. But we've come a long way in those last 10 years. It's been one hell of a ride, not just for us, not just for the membership industry, but for the world, right? We had that little thing called the pandemic. We've had the rise of AI. We've had global economic crises. We've had so much seismic shift in the world that it almost feels exhausting looking back quite as much over the last 10 years. And so while we've been celebrating our anniversary, while we've been looking back at what we've done over the last decade, over the past few episodes this month, and we've talked about the most significant, substantial seismic shift in the membership world with the release of our membership roadmap course, now available absolutely free to absolutely everyone. No tricks, no gimmicks, no fancy funnels. Head to membershiproadmap.com and get the #1 course for launching a membership. Now I want to look to the future. Now I want to talk about what the next 10 years could hold for the membership industry. And I'm aware that by busting out the crystal ball, I'm at risk of making myself seem a little foolish. Quite often when you see marketers and business people put out their predictions for the future, they usually only last a month or two until they are completely disproven or they're completely made to look foolish because they were so far off the mark. So I'm going to try and do a little bit better. Try and maybe not kind of lock into the small fry stuff. This isn't going to be about which social media platform I think we'll all be using in 2035. This is bigger picture stuff. And I think the key, whenever we're talking about the future of the membership industry, is to recognize that while the online membership space has absolutely exploded over the last decade, you know, back when we started out in 2015, there was only a handful of us who were really advocating for this as a business model. The world was very nervously starting to embrace subscriptions as a whole a little bit more, but it wasn't quite there yet. Now it's completely different with streaming services, with SaaS, and with online memberships being such a key part of community and education on the internet. It's changed a lot, but in a lot of ways it hasn't. The key principles for success with memberships today are the same as they were back then. And we've been banging the drum about those fundamentals, about those best practices for the entirety of the last decade. And we will continue to do that for the next 10 years. Memberships will always be a retention business. You always do better looking after the members you have rather than constantly chasing new members. You're always going to need to have great onboarding, great offboarding. It's always going to be pivotal to ensure you're engaging your members and helping them to get results because they join for the transformation, not the information. They join for content, but they'll stay for community. They'll stay for results. All of these things will be as true in 10 years' time as they were today, as they were 10 years ago. So in so many ways, 10 years is a long time, but it's also not a long time at all. The fundamentals rarely shift. It's just the specific, it's the details that might change. And I think one of the most important things to note is something that myself and Robbie Kelman-Baxter, who, again, was one of the forerunners of the online membership space, or the membership world. She wrote Membership Economy, she wrote The Forever Promise. You know, she was one of the big evangelical figures in the membership world back in 2015 when we were starting out. And we had a conversation a couple of months ago, and she talked about what she sees as a right sizing of the membership industry. And that was such a perfect term because, as we discussed on that show, the pandemic created the circumstances for a lot of people to really embrace the online membership model in a way they hadn't done before, because a lot of people were at home, a lot of people had time to kill, a lot of people were looking for distraction, were investing in hobbies that they'd been putting off for years, were throwing themselves into online education. And then on the supply side of things, you had a lot of people who needed to pivot their business, who perhaps had been training or coaching in person, and suddenly they couldn't do that anymore. So they needed to actually find a new vehicle for doing that. And as such, they discovered online memberships. Now, don't get me wrong, the membership world was growing and growing and building in prominence before the pandemic. I would say that the snowball for the growth of the online membership space really did start around about 2015. And obviously the pandemic hit 5 years after that. So you were already building this membership space. People were already more comfortable with this as a business model, seeing its benefits, really starting to do things properly. But the pandemic fast forwarded that a lot. You did see the membership world explode. And truthfully, a lot of memberships started during that time that would not have gotten off the ground at any other time with any other circumstances. That was such a unique confluence of circumstance that, yeah, there were some memberships that really didn't have the fundamentals in place, that maybe didn't have the right kind of grounding, that weren't ideas that were viable long term, but they just happened to strike during the pandemic. Some of those have continued to build, thrive. They've adapted. Now the world's kind of gone back to normal. But we are seeing a lot of memberships that maybe didn't have the correct ingredients. Memberships that never really should have been, or never should have, or didn't really have solid footing, are starting to kind of fall by the wayside a little bit because they were so suited specifically to the circumstances with the pandemic, and they've kind of just been running on fumes and dwindling since things have started going back to normal. So you are seeing that right sizing. You're seeing a little bit of regression, and it's not the membership industry going backwards. It's not memberships going out of favor. It's more a return to online memberships as a model being one option of multiple for teaching, for bringing community together, for monetization. And really the focus on quality, the focus on positive member experience, the memberships that are better at cutting through the noise to keep their members engaged. Before, it wasn't as difficult to keep people engaged because people had the luxury of time. But now that people don't have the luxury of time and they don't necessarily have as much disposable income, it really is sorting out the wheat from the chaff, right? It is really survival of the best memberships. And in a positive way, it's kind of going back to how things should have been. So I do think we'll start to see that level out a little bit. And this isn't to say that, memberships are closing left, right, and center, but you are starting to see things settle and go back to normal, kind of go back to where things perhaps would have been if the growth of the online membership industry had just continued on the track it was going on before the pandemic. So that's something I definitely think we'll see properly realized, that right sizing and that settling of the online membership space, because it absolutely became a bandwagon. A lot of people, we had, again, kind of 2016, 2017, there was so much hype around memberships as the model. Everyone needs to have a membership. And the truth is, not everyone should start a membership. Not everyone is right for it. Not every problem should be solved by a membership. And that was kind of ignored with all the hype back in 2016, back in 2017, when everyone was banging on about start a membership. This is the model of the future. And I think that hype train kind of came back around during the pandemic, and thankfully it's eased off a little bit. So now the people building memberships are doing it for the right reasons, not because they are being excited into, hyped, overhyped, and pushed into going down this route because it's been plugged as, the ultimate business model. Now, of course, if we're talking about the future of the membership industry, we can't ignore the big robotic elephant in the room, AI. AI is going to be a significant factor in the online membership world going forward. Anyone who's still clinging on to the delusion that AI is just a fad, that you're kind of thinking, well, NFTs kind of fizzled out, and, you know, all these different cryptocurrencies, well, you don't hear quite as much about that. And maybe you're putting that in the same boat. Maybe you're thinking, oh, well, AI, well, it's just ChatGPT. People will get sick of it. People will get bored of it. AI, for a start, isn't just ChatGPT. It's not just the little AI feature in Canva. AI is just on a whole other level. But for us as membership owners, it is going to be a significant factor. We are not far away. I think we're maybe this time next year going to be in a place where there are mainstream services where somebody can go to a website and say, listen, I want to learn how to market my plumbing company. Please create a course for me that teaches me that. And they put in some details, they click a button, and not only will the AI model come up with the material, but it'll also create videos with an AI avatar, with an AI voice that delivers this material the same way a normal human created course would. It'll create the downloadable resources, it'll create checklists, it'll create templates, and then it'll plug it all in to an interface, to a website, like a learning management system that is pretty much just the same as what your membership will be structured like, how your membership website will look. Like, AI can already do the hard parts of that. If you ask AI to create a 10-lesson course for you, where every lesson is 10 minutes long, and come up with a curriculum, create the material for it, create some downloads, it can already do that. It can already create video with an artificial avatar presenting the material. It can already synthesize something that sounds enough like a human voice. It can already do the difficult part. The videos look a little janky. The PDFs and designs that AI will create for worksheets look a little bit amateur. But that's just the trimming. That's just the icing. AI knows how to make the cake. And AI knows how to fabricate the ingredients for that cake and bake it and all of that. All it needs now is the interface. It's just presentation. And so the challenge we're going to have as online educators is that to the end user, the experience of how they would then interact with a course. They log into a learning portal, their lessons are broken down just as they would be in a course that they paid thousands for, or a membership they're paying $50 a month for. There's a video there. They can watch that video and download the audio, they download the workbooks. The experience for them is going to be close to what they would get inside your membership. But the difference is it's going to be tailored to the specific thing that they want, and they won't have had to pay for it in the same way they would for the membership. We're not far away from that. Again, the material, the creation of the material, we're already there. All that's needed is just a little bit of better quality. But the final piece of the puzzle, assembling all of that into an interface that is a familiar learning management system kind of interface, a course interface, that's just a problem waiting to be solved. And someone's probably already working on that right now. So we're not far away from those kind of AI-generated courses and memberships. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, it won't matter because, you know, the content won't be as good as a human would create. But the thing is, the average person doesn't have enough knowledge to assess the quality of that information. That is why they need that information, right? It's like Dunning-Kruger syndrome. They lack the competency to assess how competent this material they're being given is. And again, we're not far away from AI-led kind of cheerleading, right? AI tutoring, from having an AI agent that nudges, that checks in on your progress, that assesses you as you learn. So all of these kind of things are going to be significant challenges that online educators, whether you're selling courses, workshops, or memberships, are going to need to navigate. Already you're seeing mainstream sites like masterclass.com. They have an AI coaching feature. where you can interact with, you can speak on the phone with an AI version of Gordon Ramsay, of Mark Cuban, that has been trained on their knowledge, on their voice, and you can pay for that kind of interaction. And so, yes, of course, there's no human element to it, but you're relying on your audience caring enough to come to you instead of things like that. So this is going to be a significant factor. And all this really means that over the next decade and beyond for the membership industry, and indeed for anyone trading knowledge and content can no longer be your selling point. You should not be aiming to be the Netflix of your industry. If you're trying to be the Netflix of yoga, the Netflix of marketing, the Netflix of drumming, your business will die within the next decade, because content is becoming so over commoditized. It's becoming so accessible, and there is so much slop. There is so much to wade through, and your audience isn't always going to know the difference in quality, and it's not always going to be able to care. When they can get an AI-generated course that is created, personalized for them faster than they can log into your membership portal, that becomes a problem. So content and knowledge can no longer be your selling point. The memberships that thrive and survive are the ones that will leverage community and human connection. So there needs to be more of the person-to-person within your memberships. You can't just set and forget your memberships. You can't just whack up a bunch of content and think that is going to do it, because it simply is not going to. You might have a few years left if that's your strategy, but you will die out. You cannot try to be the Netflix of your industry, because content in and of itself is just no longer going to be a viable selling point. You need to leverage community, accountability, friendships, support networks, facilitating that person-to-person connection, really threading in the human element, being present, being available within your community, and weaving the community experience into the learning experience. We're going to see a rise of more hybrid experiences where the online and the in-person meet up, whether that's just simple things like in-person member mixers, or whether, it's quarterly retreats or live events like our Retain Live Summit, Retain Live conference that we're hosting here in September. I think you will start to see more hybrid experiences. We'll start to see more people who are making themselves personally accessible at scale, whether it's through, asynchronous coaching tools like Video Ask, or even just, getting on a Zoom call, not making everything an educational thing, but making it a social thing. So bringing that social into it. You as a membership owner not only need to be leveraging community and human connection more, but also looking for as many points as possible where you can remove friction from the process, where you can deliver results that are tangible, that are visible, that are valued, and that come quick. So it's always been worthwhile finding ways of giving your members quick wins, right? To show them that if they put in the work, if they follow the path, if they engage with your membership, they will get a tangible upside. That's going to become even more important than ever. If you can find ways to shorten the path between problem and solution, to remove friction and deliver real tangible results, you're going to be more likely to succeed over the next decade. And I think the expectation of getting real tangible results is going to go up and up and up. I think we're going to see fewer people staying in memberships just out of apathy, just out of habit. I think as more products, more services go subscription-based, and at the same time, more content, more solutions are available for free through AI models and things like that, and through all of the free content that's getting added to out there in the world, it's going to be so much more expected that someone will have human access, that there will be community, and that they will get a real tangible result on their financial and time investment in your membership. And there'll also be a much greater emphasis on personalization. It's already critical. It's already very important that you try to tailor your member experience and find points of personalization within your member experience. But I think this is just going to become a standard expectation now. I think right now we're in a place where if someone joins a membership and during their onboarding, they're asked a few questions and those questions shape their member experience, even if it's just giving them recommendations of content to start with. We're at a place now where actually so few memberships do that or do it well that when it happens, the members, the users are surprised. They're delighted. They're happy about that. I think this is going to become less of a nice to have, less of a surprise and delight factor, and more of a minimum expectation. People will want personalization because they can get that to some degree from AI. Again, all the counter arguments with AI tend to be, well, it's not reliable. It lies. It hallucinates. But for one, the advances that each iteration of the most popular AI models are going through, those kinks are getting ironed out fast. And if you don't believe me, anyone who tried generating an image like a year ago using ChatGPT compared to now, just the difference, night and day. So you can't rely on AI not being at a high enough standard to compete with you if you're thinking, well, it can never do what I can do. You might know that. Your audience might not know that. And even if they do, they might not care when money is on the line. So the personalization, AI can do that for people. You need to make sure that your membership actually does it. And it's personalization that, again, removes friction and creates the shortest path from problem to solution. I think memberships as a whole in the online space have been so content focused, so focused on their library, so focused on being the Netflix of their industry that we forget about the actual benefit, the need for us to get someone from A to Z as quickly as possible. If you can solve someone's problem with a single 5-minute video, that is of so much more value than having the biggest library of tutorials on your topic. And yet too many membership owners still focus on how much stuff they have. They haven't quite realized people don't join for the stuff, they join for what the stuff makes possible. Right? And so that is going to become a non-negotiable change as things go forward. We need greater personalization. Less is going to be more. And I think we are moving to a membership world in which content, training content, educational content is almost not an afterthought, but it's not the star attraction anymore. It's just something that is utilized to get people a fast result. Everything needs to be focused on results, personalized results, results that are facilitated by leveraging community and human connection. Now, all the while, as this trajectory we are on continues, marketing is going to continue to get harder. Search engines have kind of undergone a little bit of a heel turn for any fellow wrestling geeks out there. It used to be that if you went to Google and you searched, the aim of Google, other than to generate ad revenue, the aim of Google was to give you the best possible recommendations for the websites to visit. And they wanted to do that because they knew that if they sent you off to a rubbish website with terrible content, next time you had a question, you wouldn't go back to Google, right? So their aim was to get you to somebody else, to send you away from their website as fast as possible. Because if they did that, you would rely on Google. You would see Google as the place to go to answer a question, to find a resource, to research something. That's not their priority now. Google want to not recommend somewhere that will answer your question. Google want to give you the answer themselves. And this has been true for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I talked about this during my opening keynote at Retain Live 2019, where already we were starting to see the featured snippets. We were starting to see Google answering people's questions at the top of the search results, taking your content to do it. And of course, if you've used any search engines recently, you know where we are now. Not only are they utilizing other people's content, then they are just having AI answer. And yes, AI will cite its sources, but it'll only cite a couple, 2 or 3 maybe. And the AI answers are designed to answer so completely that actually the chances of people clicking through, even if your website is cited as one of the sources of the answer by the AI response that Google now gives, even if your website is lucky enough to be, the 1 or 2 that gets cited, the answers given are going to be so comprehensive that people don't need to click through. And honestly, I don't think they're going to continue citing and recommending other websites for very long, because these large language models are being fed so much information. They are so well trained now that they're not always going to specifically tie that knowledge back to your website. Your website might be one of 20, in which case there will come a point where the mindset of these companies like Google is just, well, we don't need to credit a website, because who would we credit? This is in the same way if you share an opinion with someone, if you teach something, you don't then kind of finish the sentence by saying, and by the way, I learned this from these 10 books, right? They'll just come to a point where they just don't bother, right? So this is all to say that marketing will continue to get harder, because most of us who are trading in knowledge, who are teaching online, we've been utilizing content marketing as a core part of our marketing strategy. And that has largely been around feeding the likes of Google. So that already we've seen websites see their organic traffic sliced to smithereens. Huge sites like HubSpot.com, who were, the forebearers, the big name, the thought leaders in inbound organic content-driven marketing, their traffic has been absolutely slashed. So I think a big part of the answer is going to be diversifying the channels that we aim to reach people through, making more use of video and audio versus just written, because, we're seeing sites like YouTube already, they're starting to penalize AI-generated content. So while Google is really, same company, but while Google is really putting AI at the forefront, sites like YouTube, which actually recognizes that AI-generated content isn't what its audience want for the purposes they go to YouTube, they are pushing AI into the background. So it's finding those mediums where the priority is going to be on the things that AI cannot replicate: your face and your voice and your credibility, your authenticity. And so if you are just blogging, or if you're kind of putting up YouTube videos but they are faceless, it's maybe just kind of repurposing a podcast with just a still graphic, like, these are places where there's still the opportunity. I do think the human voice is going to become, again, more of an asset for you than the written word. And it is going to be a lot more experimental. It's going to be more important to not rest on our laurels, to test new channels, and more critical than ever to bridge the gap from your YouTube channel or from your podcast or your social media channels, where, again, we're kind of seeing a bit of a kickback by the social media platforms against AI content and against low quality content. It's going to be more important than ever to make sure you're getting the people on those platforms to your website and on your email list. Like, even if you don't get them to your website, if you use a chatbot like ManyChat on your Instagram to get people's email subscriptions, if you run ads on social media platforms where you can collect their email details directly within the ad, like, even just getting them to your website to get them subscribed to your email list isn't as important, but getting them on your list where you can more directly reach and control that audience without relying on algorithms, without, knowing that the platform that usually is utilized to reach people is now suddenly going to, shift their focus away from putting your message in front of them in the way that Google is. So owning your audience, building that email list is more critical than ever. I think again, those vanity metrics of, hey, we've got loads of YouTube subscribers, we've got so many podcast downloads, we've got a huge Instagram following, they are increasingly meaningless if we're not shifting that audience from someone else's platform to your platform. If you have not learned by now that you should not be building on rented land, you should not be building on rented land. You should not be building on rented land. Don't want your community on Facebook. You don't want to just rely on SEO. You don't want to put all of your eggs into your social media following basket. You cannot rely on these platforms to not screw you over. Make sure your priority, if you're not already, is in getting people who have engaged with your podcast, engaged with your YouTube channel, engaged with you on social, get them into your world, into your ecosystem, onto your email list where you can talk to them directly. You can follow up, you can nurture, because marketing is going to continue to get harder. It's going to get harder and harder to reach people directly. So you need to be able to build that list where you are protected from the changes these platforms are going to. I also think that we are going to be entering a new phase of collaboration. I think, again, the harder it gets for people to reach their audience directly through search and stuff like that, I think the more open people are going to need to be to collaborating with each other, to working together on things like online summits, to doing joint ventures, joint webinars, basically looking at, okay, well, who else could my audience benefit from hearing from? And then curating the voices that you introduce your audience to. So I think we are going to just see a lot more of a collaborative, connective effort amongst marketers. Whereas I think quite often we've always jealously guarded our audience. Like, we don't want our audience to hear from anyone else who has too much expertise or might take their dollars away from us or anything like that. I think people are really, really going to tap into the power of collaboration even more than they ever have. More guest opportunities on podcasts, more joint live streams, more online summits and challenges where 2 or 3 creators come together to put on something absolutely amazing and everyone benefits from it. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Again, funnily enough, human to human, right? The more that AI factors in, the more the algorithms work against us, the more things go back to basics. Your network, your connections, people. So we're going to see that a lot more, I believe. Also, just in terms of the content we're creating, I think the line is just shifting. You know, AI is able to answer surface level stuff very well. It starts falling apart a little bit when it needs to get a bit deeper. The advice starts to become a bit generic. I think people are going to realize that increasingly. And so that more in-depth, experience-driven stuff, storytelling, practical case studies, that sort of content where we're going deeper, I think is going to resonate even more and move the needle for us more. So investing in storytelling, again, telling the stories of people, real, relatable, not just made up. If you go to AI and you ask it for case studies on successful memberships, it'll invent a whole bunch of them. It'll give you some real examples, but it'll also invent some. I've asked it to summarize the top podcast interviews from our Behind the Membership series where we've interviewed successful membership owners. I gave a few that we did, but also just started inventing guests that have never been on the show. So stuff that goes deeper, stuff that tells stories is going to be more valuable to you than the surface level stuff, 10 top tips, the basic kind of shallow content. I don't think is going to cut it anymore. I think trust overall is just going to become a massive asset. It already is, particularly for membership owners, because, you know, someone joins our membership, they are trusting us to guide them potentially for years, but it's going to become even more prevalent. It's getting harder and harder to know what's real in terms of content. And even when it's human generated, it's not AI generated content, influencer culture makes even legit messages, legit content untrustworthy and biased because people are always looking for the angle right? I think people in general just assume the worst. They think there's going to be a catch. They're looking for the hidden trick. Anytime I've talked about the fact we recently made our membership roadmap free, I'm kind of having to repeat the fact there's no fancy funnel, there's no gimmick, there's no tricks, because I know people are waiting for the trick, right? Internet marketers have made people expect this kind of thing. Influencers have made people think everyone's got an angle, and now AI is making people question whether that human that they're seeing is even a human at all. So trust is going to become even more critical, but I do think that means people will be attaching more closely to carefully selected, trusted voices. That is great for membership owners, but it does tell you that you need to go deeper. I think now, this next 10 years, if you've got a successful membership, or, if you're in the early stages, the first couple of years of your membership journey and it's all going well, I think a key focus for your business will be on diversification. It'll be looking at what you can go deeper beyond the membership. Treating your membership still as the hero product, still as the main entry point to what you do, but looking at how you can help that 10% of your member base who need a little bit more. How can you help those people who want to go a little faster, who want more friction removed, who want more access, and actually looking at what we can do to go deeper into serving our audience beyond what we're able to do in our membership. That, I think, is going to become an even bigger priority for most membership owners. And it's the right time for it because, like I said, people are going to be more closely attaching themselves to the voices they trust, to the experts that they trust, because that trust is more hard won than ever before. And that, I think, represents an opportunity, but also a need. There will be more of a demand for the person who comes to you to solve 2 or 3 of their key problems. They're also going to want to solve you come to you for other problems, for other things, for other products, for other pieces of that vertical, pieces of that industry. And so I think for really evolving and expanding your membership business and kind of capitalizing on where the industry is going, where society and the online space is going in general, you need to be looking at that membership ecosystem as a whole. So if you put your membership at the heart of your business, what else can you offer? Is there a software tool that you could develop? Is there a higher level program that you can develop? Is it time to start looking at consulting? What other things could you be serving your audience with? And I think now's the time to be asking those questions. Now's the time to be doing the research and laying the tracks if you don't already have other components in your membership ecosystem within your company. Then now is the time to start exploring those and seeing where it can go, because this next 10 years is going to be interesting. I do think the next decade will really be not pinned on, but I do think AI is going to be the key component in driving change, positive, negative, and also a lot of change that we'll probably panic about and it'll end up not affecting us. But I do think that's going to be the main linchpin of change over the next decade of the membership industry. Key principles will still be the same. Memberships are about people. Memberships are an evolution. You're never going to go wrong paying attention to data and to feedback. Look after the members you have, engage them, get them wins, get them results. Don't make cancelling difficult, all that sort of stuff. All the things we've been banging on about for the last decade. I'll still be banging on about it for the next 10 years and the 10 years after that, God willing. But I do think the stuff I've talked about today, that is really where the puck is going in terms of the online knowledge trading space, online community space. One thing I do hope changes, I hope we start to get some blooming clarity around the language, because it was already difficult enough. The word membership was such a ubiquitous word. It could be applied to so many different things. Netflix would call it subscribers, members. But for you and I, an online membership is a very distinct kind of thing. It's typically centered around expertise, around education. There's usually obviously an e-learning component, resources, and a community. It looks a certain way, but the word membership has been thrown around in so many different formats. But now we also have the word community. People are now referring to social media followers as your community. And so, yeah, God, I really do hope that the next 10 years, someone decides to say, listen, right, can we just agree that when we say membership, it means this, and we'll only say community for this? Anyway, that's just my little bugbear. I won't rant on it too much. I do hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope it's given you a bit of food for thought for where things could be going and how you could set your membership on the right course for that. Of course, within Membership Academy, we're going to be steering our community in the direction that we see this industry going and helping you to adapt, to survive and to thrive everything that is thrown at you over the next decade and beyond. So if you're not in the Academy, now is the most important time you could be joining us. Head on over to membershipacademy.com. If you're just starting out your membership journey, remember, you can learn how to launch your membership the right way through our free membership roadmap course. This isn't some 5-part email course from cobbled together blog posts. This is an 8-module, in-depth, actionable, practical, comprehensive course that you will work through, and you will actually do the work as you go. So when you finish this course, you will have your membership set up the right way with your retention processes, with your website built, your sales funnel, and all that good stuff ready to go. And you will launch your membership all entirely for free at membershiproadmap.com. Head on over there. But if you've got your membership running and you want to learn the strategies, the tactics, and the principles that are going to carry your membership to that next level over all the challenges that the next decade is going to throw, you need to be inside Membership Academy. Head to membershipacademy.com. All right, plug over. And it is a shameless plug because there's no shame about it. It's where I do my best work. And if nothing else, you get to observe the case study that is how I run my own membership by being a member. And that in and of itself is what so many of our members get the most value from. So that is it for me for now. I do hope you've enjoyed today's episode and found it useful and enlightening. I'd love to hear your top takeaway and indeed your prediction for what the next 10 years of the membership industry has in store for us. Hit me up on social media at Membership Geeks, or you can chat inside our free Facebook group. Go to talkmemberships.com. That's talkmemberships.com. That will redirect you to our free Facebook group with 20,000 membership owners in there. And of course, if you're an Academy member, we're going to be talking about this even more inside the private member community. So let's keep the conversation going there. But I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts on my thoughts. And I'd also love to hear your predictions. One thing I know for sure, it's going to be one hell of a ride, and I can't wait to be with you for the next decade in this wonderful world of memberships. That's it from me. I'll be back again next week with another episode of the Membership Geeks podcast. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Membership Geeks podcast, we invite you to check out membershipacademy.com. Membership Academy is the original membership about memberships, and it's the essential resource for anyone at any stage of starting, growing, and running a successful online membership business. Whether you're still trying to figure out what your idea is going to be and you need some help making it a reality, or whether your website is already up and running and you're looking for ways to grow and attract new members, then Membership Academy can help you to get to the next level. Not only do you get access to our step-by-step membership roadmap, our extensive training library, and exclusive member-only discount and tools, you'll also become part of our supportive, active community of membership owners that will help you along the way in your journey with feedback, encouragement, and advice. All of this and more make Membership Academy the #1 place to be for anyone looking to start, manage, and grow a successful membership business. Check it out and join the community at membershipacademy.com.